Okay, so let's create our chair. So I'm going to go over to New, Family, and then I'm going to go over to, let's go to Furniture. That will work fine. Or you could do, there's probably a couple that you could do. You could do generic model floor based. You could do generic model face based. You could probably do generic model too, but I'm going to do furniture. All right.
Just furniture.
Yeah, that's fine. Or generic model face based, floor based. Those all work fine too. All right. So the first step, let's analyze this. The image that we have right now. Okay. So the first 4 objects that I would probably create are going to be the legs, all right? So I think I said earlier the legs are probably about 1 inch by 4 inches ish. That's just my guess. To be a little bit more realistic, they might be like 3/4 of an inch thick. If it's like a 1 by 4, maybe it's a 1 by 6 or something like that. But as a hint, all of the wood in this minus maybe these back 2 pieces or these back 3 pieces are all the same size. Okay, they're all the same. They're all composed of the same pieces or same dimensions of wood. So we have 4 legs down here. All right, so let's go ahead and just create 1 leg, and then I'm going to copy it down 24 3/4 of an inch. All right, so I'm going to go to extrusion. I'm going to say that this is 4 by, I'm going to say 3/4 of an inch. Okay, and I want to copy this down 24 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to select those lines. 24.34 plus that is going to be 25.5 inches. Okay, now to make sure that's correct, let's just measure this real quick. 24.34 inches. Okay, so that's right. All right, now we need 2 more legs over here. So what's that distance going to be? All right, it says 20.5 inches. And if I know the width of my leg is 4 inches, I'm going to copy this over 24.5 inches again. Does everyone see why I'm doing that? So I know this is 20.5 inches. I'm just adding the width of the leg on top of that distance, so I know how much to copy it over. All right. My start extrusion is 0, 0 because the bottom of our legs are going to be at 0, 0, and the top it says is at 23.25 inches, and that's actually, if I'm going to be extra specific in this tutorial. All right. Technically, that is to the top of the arm. Okay, so that's 3/4 of an inch thick. So that means the top of this leg is going to be 22.5 inches. All right, so I'm going to change the end to 22.5 inches. If you didn't do this, don't go back and change it. It's okay. All right, and I'll go ahead and hit the check mark. All right, so there's my 4 leg posts for my chair. All right, so the next pieces that I need to create maybe are going to be, I would say, probably these four supports that wrap all the way around the chair. All right, I'm going to say that they're probably aligned with the inside of this board right here. All right, and the top of it is 3/4 of an inch less than 13. All right, in the bottom, if we know that this is 4 inches thick, we can all do the math and we can figure out what the bottom of that should be. So I'm going to go to a reference plane. I'm going to create another extrusion. Okay, 3/4 of an inch. Like that. I'm going to copy this over. Like so. All right, and that will be those two supports right there. Now, what is the reason why I would not draw these 2 in as well? Is there a reason why I wouldn't, I'm just drawing these 2. Why would I not draw all 4? Yeah.
Because if you want to expand, it'll be easier to expand it by just touching those 2.
That is true, but the other reason why is because for this support, if I wanted to do this, what's the problem with that? What will Revit not like about that?
Not connecting the components.
This right here. These are intersecting lines. Okay, so it won't let you do that. All right, so I'm going to draw them into, I'm just going to break them up into two separate pieces. All right, so our top is going to be, what did I say, 3/4 of an inch below 13. So the top is going to be 22 1/4, or I'm sorry, no, 12 1/4 inches. And the start is going to be 4 inches less than that, so it's going to be 8 1/4. Okay, everyone see why that is? So a lot of what this really is just the ability to do quick, simple math of just kind of knowing where your reference plane is and know how far either below or above it that you are. So the ability to be able to do quick math is very important when working with reference planes, because you need to know where you are and where you're working in respect to that reference plane. All right, so there's that. We have those two supports, and now I'm going to draw the same two supports in the other direction. All right, create extrusion, and they're going to go from here to here, and from here to there. Okay, and all of our constraints will be exactly the same. All right, looking good. Now, the next piece is probably going to be, I would say probably the slats. You can barely see here the slats that you see right here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slats, and they rest on top of the, it looks like the top and the back. Okay, and you could probably, it's kind of hard to tell, but you could probably argue that, I don't know if this one right here is the same as this one. This also might just be a little trim piece that's just sitting on top of this one. Okay, it might, I can't really tell. It might be the same. So if it's, let's just pretend it's the same. All right, so we know the top of where we're working is going to be at 1 1/4. That's where we're going to start here. So I'm going to go to create extrusion, and our start's going to be at 1 1/4 because we're now on top of the supports that we just created. And then the top of it is going to be what? If we know our boards are 3/4 of an inch, what would our top constraint be? 1 1/4 plus 3/4 of an inch? Nope. We're starting at 1 1/4. I'm sorry, the start should be at 1 foot and 1/4 of an inch, and our board is 3/4 of an inch thick, so our top constraint would be what?
13?
It would, yes, it would be 13 inches, or 1 foot 1 inch. Okay, that's correct. So I'm going to say that here it'd probably be smart to do a little bit of math before we actually create these. Okay, so if we know this is 1 foot 10. And what I'm figuring out right now is what is the spacing between all of those boards. If we have a common dimension for all of the slats, what's that spacing going to be? All right. So we have 1 foot 10. So this is basically our area that we're working with, and we have 4 foot wide or 4 inch wide boards, and we have 5 of them. So that's 20 inches. All right, and this is 1 foot 10 or 22 inches. All right, so we have 1 board, 2 board, 3 board, 4 board, 5 board. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces in between. So each of those spaces is going to be what? A ½ inch, right? Because so the total width of all of our boards is 20 inches, all right, and the width of our chair is 22 inches. So we have 2 extra inches. That means that the width between all of these boards is going to be a ½ inch. So we have ½ inch, ½ inch, ½ inch, ½ inch. That's 2 inches. All right. So let's draw our first board, and I'm actually going to start here. You know, this is 4 inches. So I'm doing it a little bit differently in that these are gonna, this board's gonna sit on both. So that's one. All right, I could mirror this over. All right, we can move it right there. Okay, and then we're going to have a couple 4-inch boards. 4 by, let's make this 4 inches wide. All right, now we want 1/2 inch spacing between all of our boards, so I'm just going to give myself a little reference line like that. And I'm going to move this right there. Okay, everyone see how I'm doing that? All right, now I can select my 4-inch board again, and I'm going to move it over. I'm going to copy it over how much? If I want a 1/2 inch spacing between it? 4.5. So 4.5 inches, right. And then I'll do that one more time. Look at that. So we have all the exact same size boards. We have the exact same spacing between all of the boards. Okay? Hit the check mark. And now we have all of the base slats for our chair. All right, let's look at a couple of our other pieces. So now let's build the arms. Okay, the arms are going to span the entire width of both of the legs plus what dimension? 3/4 of an inch. It goes over by 3/4 of an inch because it has a little support here on the back. Okay, so I am going to change now so that I don't keep adding dimensions on top of my reference plane. I'm going to change my reference plane to the top of these arms so that I don't have to keep adding 3/4 of an inch increments on top of all of the extrusions that we did. All right, so I'm going to go to set work plane, pick plane, and I'm going to make the top of the legs my new reference plane. So now when I draw, all I got to do is just draw it like this. Boom, boom. I'm going to take both of these back edges. I'm going to extend it by 3/4 of an inch. Oops, copy those lines. I meant to just move it. Let's just trim those. Okay, that looks good. Let's make our start. What would our new start be? If I changed my reference plane to the top of those legs, what would my new start constraint be? It'd be 0 because we changed the reference plane to the top. So we're now starting all over because the surface of the top of those legs is our new reference plane. So we're going to now be at 0 again. And our end is going to be what? 3/4 of an inch. Does that make sense? Okay. So you can see here the most critical part of doing all this is really having a firm understanding of where your reference planes are and where you are within your reference plane. So just because I'm in a 3D view, it's good to know, even though I'm in a 3D view, what reference plane am I currently working on? Is my reference plane the bottom over here? Is my reference plane the top of my legs? Is it the side of one of my legs? All right, and knowing that and knowing some basic math, you can start to draw and understand where things actually are in terms of the reference planes. Okay, so now we need to draw another little piece. There's a little support that goes underneath here. All right, you can see it right there. Okay, so I'm going to change my reference plane to make this a little bit easier. Where do you think I should change that reference plane to? Guesses? All right, I can see why we're having trouble. All right, I'm going to change the reference plane to the back of these legs here. All right, I'm just making it easier on myself. Set the reference plane, pick a plane. All right, and I'm going to select the back of this leg. So now I can work back here. I'm going to do an extrusion. It looks like maybe this is a little bit smaller, so maybe this is like 3/4 of an inch by 2 inches or something like that. All right, so we're going to go up here. We've already changed our reference plane. Maybe it's 1.5 inches. All right, does that make sense on how we did that? All right, so we've changed our reference plane so that I can just draw right where I want it to be. No need to draw it. You could also draw it down here if you wanted to, and then just adjust the constraints accordingly. That's an option. That's another way you could do it. I just said I want to draw this exactly where I want it to be and not have to try to adjust the constraints in all these weird different ways. Okay, so there's that little support piece. All right, so now the next step is going to be to create these the diagonal backing for our back. All right, and to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my reference plane to a plane that I know I can just draw that shape in. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go to Create, Set Reference Plane, pick Plane, and I'm going to change it to this face right here. Okay, because that's where I want to be able to draw that shape. All right, so now if I go to my left view, I can just draw it exactly the way that I want it, in that angle. Okay, so it's going to be supported by here. It's going to be supported right on that edge. Actually, technically, it's going to be supported on this edge right here, that corner. So let's do it from here, and I'm just going to kind of make up the angle. I don't know what the angle is off the top of my head, but we'll just say it's this. Okay, and let's make this 3/4 of an inch thick. All right, let's finish this. Here we go, bada bing, bada boom. All right, hit the check mark. All right, and there's that piece. Now all we got to do is just extend it. Let's look at it in its front view. Let's see, why do I not have... Ah, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to pull this out, 1 and 2. All right, so I accidentally pulled this in the wrong direction. Let's push this back the way that it should be. All right, we're getting closer. All right, so the way they would actually do that in real life, they would actually just cut out a little notch in that wood. I'm not going to get that detailed in this right now. If you wanted to, you could click on that board and you could click on Join and you could select these two pieces. Then it will actually show a line around that. All right, so now that I've got that first board, I'm just going to copy it over. I'm going to unclick Constrain so it removes it from the reference plane. All right, so let's click on multiple too so that I can just copy this over. This one's not quite lined up right. Okay, there we go. So there's our backing of our chair. All right, you should probably be a little taller. What kind of chair is this? An Adirondack chair?
It looks like
Almost.
Kinda.
Adirondack's kind of, the seat leans down.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's right. It kind of goes. It dips down.
Chair you can never get out of.
Right. All right. So there's our backing. All right. Now we're going to create the cushion. All right. This is the last piece. I think we have the cushion. Making sure there's nothing else we're forgetting. Oh, actually, we still have these little back supports that go along the back here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change my reference plane to one of these side pieces here. All right, so I'm going to go over to Create, or let's go to Set Work Plane, pick a plane, and I'm just going to pick the side of this board to be my new reference plane. So now I can just draw my new extrusion like so. So we'll say this is like 1.5 inches. And we'll offset this 3/4 of an inch. That looks good. Let's use our trim tool. All right, and there's that piece. All right, everyone can see here that changed my reference plane to the side of that board. All right, I'm going to copy this up so I can use it again. It's somewhere up about like that, and I'll hit check. All right, right now it's not long enough, so let's change this to like 2 feet. All right, we're going the wrong way, not a problem though. Let's just drag this over here. Let's drag this over here. This is just snapping to the different edges. All right, and now we have those back 2 supports. Everyone see how we're doing that? So let's create, lastly, our cushion. So I'm going to change my reference plane to the top of my seat now. So create, work plane, pick a plane, and I'm going to pick the top of my seat. All right, so now I can go to extrusion, and maybe we draw something like, well, like that. Okay, we like that. Let's make our extrusion, let's make our seat maybe 4 inches thick. Yeah, something about like that. Okay, and so earlier we talked about doing the, we talked about the void, the different void form. If you want to soften the edge of this cushion, we can do that. So maybe we go over to create, void form, we do a void sweep. I'm going to change the top of my reference plane to the top of my cushion. You could also do the bottom of the cushion too, if you wanted to do the sweep around the bottom edge, if you want to soften the bottom edge as well. All right, and I am going to sketch the path, and I'm going to pick all of the edges of my cushion. All right, so there's my path. Hit the check mark. All right, and then I'm going to go over to edit profile, and I'm going to draw the profile of that I want to remove from the edge of this cushion. All right, so I'm going to say maybe something like, just kind of making this up a little bit, something kind of like that. Okay, so I remove that corner of the cushion, hit the check mark again, and now you can see that we now have rounded edges on our cushion. All right, the other thing that it did though is it actually subtracted, it actually removed it from the leg. Okay, so how can we fix that? I'm going to click on that void form, all right, and I'm going to pick on, let's see, edit. Edit sweep. Sorry, I'm just refreshing my own memory here on how to fix that. You can actually deselect the objects that you don't want it to void from. Select profile. Let's see. Edit sweep. Join cut. Uncut geometry. Maybe that's it right there. I'm going to click on that void form. There we go. Everyone see how I did that? Let me just backtrack. So I'm going to select that void form that I just created. I'm going to go over to join, click on Unjoin Geometry, and I'm going to click on the object that I don't want that void form to cut through. Of course, I didn't want to do it the second time. Just let me try that again. Unjoin. Well, what the heck? Come on now. It worked the first time. Well, you guys saw it being a success the first time, so we'll leave it at that. I don't know why I can't get it to work the second time. Unjoin geometry. Come on now.
Maybe the object you can select the cushion.
Anyways, I'll come back to that. But that right there shows you how to finish that chair. And then once you get all the pieces done, you can start to select all of the different components and assign them materials. Okay, so if you want this thing to be wood, you could select all of the different wood pieces. All right, select all of the different wood pieces and start to assign materials. So if you want these to all be the same piece of wood,
how do you assign the materials when the materials don't want to show up?
yeah, you'll go right here. It's right here under material.
Do we have to select the whole
You have to well, you have to select a component first. You have to select one of the pieces that you created, and then you can click on material, and you can start to, you can create a wood material or whatever you want it to be. All right, so that's going to be it. Go ahead and